Thank you so very much indeed. And Madam Rajavi, dear friends of human rights, I must say Iran is a great country. She has very proud history and excellent culture. And in fact, the country should be very rich because she has a lot of oil, but that's not the truth of today. Today, Iranian people are the hostess of the worst dictatorship in the world of today. Because of the corruption, many people live in hunger, and the country is isolated because it exports terrorism. I think the history shows there's a clear path to prosperity. Europe learned after the World War II that we have to trust in certain values, which are democracy, human rights, rule of law, market economy, and also the equality between men and women. And if you go on this path, you'll be successful. I understand Iranian people protest today because of the terrible conditions in the country. And that is why the dictatorship in Iran is very afraid. They know what happened in Eastern Europe, late 1980s, when people took the power in their own hands. The Iranian dictatorship is desperate at the moment, and that is why they try to crush their own people. And it's a very bad thing that this means that protesters have been killed, murdered, and many of them sit in the prison at the moment. Navid Afkari's name has been mentioned today several times. And as said, he was hanged a few days ago. And the fact is that Iranian authorities tortured Navid for weeks. In a smuggled letter, he described how for 50 days he was beaten with sticks and batons on his arms, buttocks, and back. And he had a plastic bag over his head until he was almost suffocated. And finally, he was executed, he was murdered. This single case, I think, is a hero of people, and we must. The international community must, at this very moment, must take action against the Iranian dictatorship. What must be done? It is, we need economic sanctions. But then when you put economic sanctions, of course, you have to try to take care that there's no black trade that's fueled by the dictatorship and the corruption. Then we need also personal sanctions. There must be sanctions against those people who are leading the country and who have been involved in the murdering of the people. It means their money abroad must be freezed, and if they ever come outside the borders of Iran, so they must be seized and they must be brought into the court of law and they must be sentenced for their crimes. Unfortunately, many Iranian diplomats as well have been engaged with terrorism. And it means the European Union member countries must look how many diplomats Iran can have in their own countries. There must be thorough surveillance. And I think Iran must not have that many diplomats in our countries because of the terrorism. And one thing what the European diplomats must do in Iran is that they must go to the prisons, look after the demonstrators, try to protect them, help them, and make their cases very well known to try to save their lives. And finally, what's very important as well is that there's an investigation to all mass murders. Very important is the murdering of many people in 1988. Those who are guilty must be brought in front of the court. And finally, I must say, there is only one way that can really solve the situation, and that is that the Iranian people take their own fate in their own hands. We need a change of the government, change of the regime in Iran. That is the only durable solution. Thank you. The fight continues.